What's going on, guys? My name is Wade with TechDaily, and in this video, we are checking out the brand new Poco F4. This is, of course, the successor to Xiaomi's super popular Poco F series devices. And this new F4 continues the tradition of offering an incredible array of nearly flagship caliper specs and features for a price point of well under $500. This latest iteration also offers a couple new changes and upgrades compared to the F3. I'm, of course, going to go over all of that and everything else you need to know, but first things first, let's go ahead and unbox this new device and see what all comes inside the package when you buy one. Sliding off the lid, the first thing we see is a bright yellow Poco stamped packet of stuff, and inside you'll find the SIM ejector tool if you need it, along with a ton of other things. There's quite the array of paperwork, instructions, and setup information. There's also a tiny little packet that holds your USB-C to headphone dongle. Unfortunately, no traditional 3.5mm headphone jack on this device. You also get a screen protector, which you'll need to install yourself, and a pretty nice crystal clear rubber case. So you've got everything you need to keep your new phone protected. Underneath all that stuff, we of course get the phone itself, and you can see some of the features and specs already, including the 120Hz AMOLED display, 64 megapixel camera, and turbocharging. And we'll cover all that stuff in a moment. Finishing up here, there's two more accessories at the very bottom of the box. You get a standard USB-A to USB-C charging cable, along with Poco's super fast 67-watt charging brick, which should be able to juice this phone up from 0 to 100% in under 40 minutes. And honestly, it's just great to have all of these accessories and things still included with this phone. So with all that stuff out of the way, here is the new Poco F4 once again. You can see I got mine in the night black color. It also comes in moonlight silver and nebula green. And like I mentioned earlier, the price for this guy will likely vary a little bit depending on where in the world you live. But for most international markets, including Asia and Europe, you'll see this phone retail for between $420 and $450, depending on the configuration. Physically, you might be able to tell that this new Poco F4 does resemble a previously launched device, the Xiaomi Redmi K40S. We get a fairly large 6.67-inch display once again, corner to corner, relatively slim bezels all around, tiny selfie camera up top in the middle, slightly thicker bottom chin, and a decent 87% screen-to-body ratio. In the hand, while this is one of the bigger, taller devices, it doesn't feel too overwhelming. Sure, you're going to have to shift your hand position and stretch a bit to reach all the corners, but this form factor is what we're all probably used to nowadays, if you use any 6.7 or 6.8-inch device. Around back, this Poco F4 is all glass. It offers a fairly premium build for its price point for sure. Yeah, you definitely collect all of the fingerprints, but the shine and finish looks super nice. It's subtle too. And the flat metal-like frame finishes off the higher end feel and gives this phone some nice weight. There's no curves or contours really. It's a totally flat profile. The camera bump, which has been reconfigured on this phone, is sort of a multi-tier design. There's a step up for the logo and flash and another step up to the lenses, but it doesn't protrude out too far. Also, we do get some splash and dust resistance, IP53 certification. Overall, definitely a good looking device from front to back with those premium materials and a solid build that definitely hit outside its price point. Taking a quick look around at everything else, nothing on the left side of the phone. On the right, you've got the volume and power buttons. That power button does double as your fingerprint sensor. In my initial setup and testing, I didn't notice any issues at all. It was quick and easy to configure. It wakes and unlocks the phone fairly fast and consistently. It's a nice feature to have, and this is my personal preference when it comes to fingerprint sensors too. Up top, we have a couple of things actually, including an IR blaster and secondary standalone speaker. At the bottom, the primary speaker is there alongside the USB-C port for charging and SIM card tray. This phone has dual SIM support, but unfortunately no SD card slot. There's the earpiece slit at the top above the selfie camera up front, and around back a triple lens camera setup, which we'll talk about and demo in just a bit. When it comes to the display, the 6.67-inch screen on the F4 is once again an AMOLED panel coming in at a resolution of 2400 by 1080, pushing around 395 pixels per inch. It also supports HDR10 Plus content and Dolby Vision with a peak brightness of some 1300 nits, and it is a 120Hz high refresh rate panel. Seemingly the same spec and setup as the Poco F3, but that's not a bad thing at all. And in fact, I consider this display setup to be one of the top reasons to consider this device. These specs and Recent features, from the bold, bright, and very colorful AMOLED panel to the fairly crisp resolution for this big size, to the 120Hz mode, which delivers a fast and smooth feel with your taps and touches, are all what you'd find on some $700 smartphones and beyond. This is a great looking display from top to bottom. It delivers everything you could ask for any and all content, and there's also some Poco specific screen and content stuff thrown in for some enhanced viewing pleasure. I think this is what Poco does best on these mid-tier devices. While companies like Samsung and Motorola tend to compromise or otherwise flip-flop on screen specs year over year, Poco just gives you everything up front and then some for a top-tier viewing experience. And like I said, this is reason enough to consider this phone. Also, for your out-loud viewing experience, the F4 delivers some great sound with its dual speaker setup. The one up top isn't the combo earpiece speaker. It's a standalone one similar to the primary bottom speaker, and because of that, you get a louder, fuller sound. Here's a quick sample so you can hear it for yourself. Inside, this new Poco F4, interestingly enough, is powered by the same specs and components as last year's F3. We once again get the Qualcomm Snapdragon 870 chipset, paired with 6, 8, or a new 12 gig RAM configuration option, and 128 or 256 gigs of internal storage. Now, in regards to having the same processor as last year, Poco actually commented on this and basically said there wasn't another lower cost Snapdragon processor that they could have used. The only options they had were the 888 or the latest 8 Gen 1, both of which would have likely increased the price of this phone, which people wouldn't have wanted. So that's their explanation. But as far as the performance and power, here are the Geekbench scores for the Snapdragon 870. It's still a very capable chipset, and I think falls well within this phone's price points, even if it is a year past its prime. Overall, I think the Poco F4 is going to be a fully capable device, ready to handle any apps, tasks, or games you want to throw at it. And compared to, say, the flagship Snapdragon chipsets even from this year, I don't think those make that much of a difference. Certainly not for twice the price or more. This is a plenty powerful device for every occasion, and it's another reason why I think this phone continues to be an incredible value. The internal specs aren't decisively mid-tier, they're upper tier for sure, close enough to the most powerful processors on the market today, but for a fraction of the price. And paired with a MIUI 13 update, this phone feels fast, fluid, and very smooth. And I'm excited to put it to the test in the coming weeks to see what it can really handle. Also powering this phone is a decent-sized 4500 milliamp battery. Now yes, a 5000 milliamp might have been the best option, but I still think you've got enough power to get you through the day, and honestly, paired with that 67 watt turbo charger, which juices this thing up in about 38 minutes, it's not like you're spending much time at all plugged in anyway. Overall, a solid power setup for a device like this. Around back, this is actually where most of the changes to the Poco F4 can be found. Not only is the camera module itself redesigned obviously, but we get some new hardware too. The main lens is now a 64 megapixel f1.8 aperture shooter, paired with the same 8 megapixel 119 degree ultra wide. The macro lens, however, gets a downgrade. It's a 2 megapixel shooter, but let's be honest, the macro lens isn't particularly useful to begin with anyway. The selfie camera appears to be the same 20 megapixel lens as last year as well, and inside the camera app, Poco no doubt offers some of the more interesting camera features and shooting modes on any smartphone. Capability-wise, the ultra-wide lens is obviously very valuable. You've got 10 times digital zoom, some pro controls to play with, there's night mode, a 64 megapixel high-detailed shooting mode, dual lens capture, but also some random stuff like short-form video and vlog modes, movie effect filters, long exposure, document scanning. Some of those are obviously more useful than others, but it's stuff you don't really see anywhere else. This phone also supports 4K video at up to 60 frames per second, which I feel like isn't a capability that's offered often in this price range. And just taking some quick sample pictures here, this is, I think, just another area where Poco seems to over-deliver. Selfie pics look awesome. They're well balanced, great color, tons of detail. The default profile is sort of beautified. You can adjust that after the fact with the smoothness and everything. But honestly, some great looking shots. And that extends to the rear camera too. Just really well balanced, good looking pictures from top to bottom. And I think Poco spent a lot of time with the image processing here to deliver such a compelling looking final shot. And this is a camera setup I'm really looking forward to putting to the test. Overall, the new Poco F4 is no doubt a relatively minor upgrade to last year's F3, but it sticks with the theme of offering some stellar specs and features for less than half the price of some of today's Android flagships. I'm not sure if it's necessarily enough to upgrade if you have an F3 right now. After all, it's mainly a slightly refreshed design, higher RAM configuration option, and better main camera setup that's all new. But if you have an older Poco or Redmi device, or maybe a lesser budget device, I do think this is one of the better buys out there right now when it comes to sheer value, especially with things like its display, the Snapdragon processor, and the overall camera capabilities. But what do you guys think? Is the new Poco F4 something you would consider right now? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to know your thoughts, of course. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this video though. Be sure to follow TechDaily on Twitter and subscribe to the TechDaily YouTube channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys later.